headed for Mars. Every U.S. general headed for Washington, D.C. Is this a panic? Sure. But what you need is perspective. Because the thing about crashes like this, where everything's down like 7 or 10%, is that it's a liquidity event. A liquidity event for who? Well, hopefully you, me, and most certainly for the bigger players. Now, we have old news being repackaged once again. The country in Eastern Europe likes to fly its jets really close to, I don't know, everyone's planes and boats. And now all of a sudden, you know, we're going to get into it with the big guys, especially the Europeans. I'm like, okay. As far as the Middle East goes, everyone's like, well, you know, we're fighting and, you know, I'll hurt you if you hurt me. Have we heard this before? I think we have. I think we have. And when we go over the Gann roadmap that Patreon and the YouTube guys had, you're going to look at this market and laugh, even though I know you're crying. You know, like talked about the final dip, like, you know, on that morning live stream, and people were losing their mind that I was fudding the market. I'm not fudding anything right now. I'm not doing that crash thumbnail. I'm not doing that. Yes, this is the emergency market update, and I am your host, Bill Noble. But most altcoins are doing exactly what the chart says they were going to do at almost exactly the time that the Gann work said it was going to do. I'm going to share it. And I also happen to be sitting on top altcoins for October. We got a list of 20. We got a list of 3. I may preview some of that today in what will likely be a robust altcoin overtime as we get the charts out. We start going over what's happening here. This is an overshoot and a liquidity event, right? We have all these headlines like gold is up and so is the dollar. Everyone's afraid. People are selling U.S. treasuries. You know, that's kind of unusual in an environment like this, right? So sovereign credibility could be on the line. Housing in the United States continues to rot. Yet, with all this, we are falling over ourselves to sell crypto. We're falling over ourselves to rage quit the market, to engage in despair. And you know what? We're going to have none of that today. Toby told you in the last YouTube member podcast, do not fall for this stuff. Don't, right? In other words, you know, maybe you bought it 2 days ago. Maybe you're buying it today. Maybe you just have to hose in your sit. Well, if you're buying it, if you're able to buy it, you know, Toby would say, well, what's the difference if Bitcoin's going to 250K? Does anybody remember this? Does anybody remember everyone talking about all these huge upside targets? So if you want some guidance, you know, and we're doing small altcoins this weekend. We're doing small altcoins, you know, as soon as this is over, which, you know, should be any day now. And Patreon already had the Gann roadmap, and top altcoins for next month, or frankly, for the fourth quarter, are coming. I will show you what the guys in Patreon got. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to do it right now. It's in a Word doc. Okay. And we're going to go over the Gann roadmap, because I think that's just what people need to hear right now. And then we'll talk specific altcoins later. Don't worry. We're going to get to the charts, the news, but I mean, let's talk about the roadmap. Let's talk about what our guys had, right? So on Wednesday, 9/17, the Gann model had 117.5 for Bitcoin, 4,700 for ETH with an FOMC 25 basis point cut. So this is our roadmap, right? As of 9/15. Then you scroll all the way down here, right? You have the eclipse on the 21st, right here. You have the fall equinox, which is like, you know, the day fall starts. Change of seasons, a big Gann date. And normally when you have these two things close together, you get volatility. So, the model was like, well, it's going to go from 110 on the Equinox and then eventually wind up at 108.5 in Bitcoin, 108,500. That was supposed to be yesterday. So, we were a half a day off. This is not investment advice, but sue me, right? And as you'll notice, Bitcoin gets to its target right around the date. And you'll also notice that there's been an overshoot, which is the key word for today, right? There's been an overshoot. ETH was supposed to stop at 4,100. It went to 3,900. Solana was supposed to stop at 205 and went to 199. And, XRP are right around 270, which I think is exactly where XRP is. Okay, so we had eclipse volatility. They puked the market. Everyone hates it. There's all of these stories as to why it's happening. Meanwhile, gold and silver continue to go up. Gold and silver going up is a prelude to a mega rally in ETH. This goes back to statistics, right? Statistics, just straight up statistics. Dollar down, dollar's a little up, but silver and gold are rampaging, particularly silver as it connects to ETH. It's an absolute rampage. And we're selling crypto. Now, one of the reasons why they could be selling crypto is that they're afraid of equities, right? I mean, the general public is in, everyone's in stonks. Rich people are paying cash for housing. It's very obvious that they're buying the top. Very obvious, right? And of course, everyone in crypto is looking at what's happening and assigning fear, large players pushing you out, and general shock as meaning something. When really all it means is you had, kind of like a Gann timing shakeout. You had negative momentum divergences on charts, bear div, as they say on crypto Twitter. We talked about this in Patreon. I'm like, hey, one final puke. The divergence has not worked itself out yet. Let's get this low right. So you know what the theme of today's show is? Let's get this low right. Let's get the low right. Charts, news, altcoin picks, a preview of what's going on in the premium areas. Because like I said, there's no better time to look at top altcoins for October. Why? Well, because crypto as an ecosystem, right? We really got to start asking ourselves an important question. Why are people so miserable? Right? In other words, the AI trade is going and, everyone's building everything, but people are miserable. Some thought leaders are finally deciding, they have kids actually, they're finally deciding to come around to this idea. Now, if you have AI disrupting a lot of other things and AI has a huge valuation, the valuation of all of crypto is so minuscule, is so ridiculously small compared to what is going on in Web 2 that, I'm sorry, it can't go any lower. You'd have to have aliens landing from another planet, which, there is rumors of that too. We have to talk a little bit about that while the powers that be allow it. Okay. You'd have to have aliens landing to prevent crypto from catching up to the valuation in equities. Now, let me see if I can drive this point home. Elon controls Twitter. Larry, the second richest guy in the world, controls TikTok. And, we know who's running, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. So these three guys control media and social interaction. And they're feeding all of that into AI models, because the biggest problem for AI models isn't electricity or water, although water is a huge problem. Wink. Their problem is data. So your data is being fed massively into Web 2. Rich people are buying it, leaving the rest of us in the dust. What's the answer to that? You want three guys running your life? Or are you going to want a decentralized system? I got news for you. You turn on a robot, Or you turn on an AI agent and they're going to go, oh, yeah, we want the decentralized system. We do. Now, speaking of a decentralized system, everybody has also forgotten about stablecoins. So we're going to fight all these battles, and, we're going to have all these programs, and we're going to have the big, beautiful bill. Guess what, folks? They got to issue government debt for that. And the government debt market is not that happy about the recent rate cuts. So what's the answer to that? A massive proliferation of stablecoins. Everyone's forgotten about this, right? First, they did the Genius Act. Okay, then they're going to do the Clarity Act. Why are they going to do the Clarity Act? Because they want the whole thing to be legal. They want the whole system to be legal, because the only way they're ever going to get government debt up to 100 trillion, total, is to have the stablecoin companies buying treasuries. And everyone's forgotten about this. Like all the people who are puking ETH, all the people who are puking Solana, all the people who are puking XRP for that matter. Because I think XRP, it's not a stable coin, but it moves like a stable coin. It's fast. And it's attached to a company. Ripple is an XRP treasury company. No one wants to talk about it like that, but I do. And everyone's selling. It's a liquidity event. It's a crash. It's a crisis on a non-crisis. Because all we've got is rhetoric, all this talk about Eastern Europe. Well, of course they're going to talk tough in Eastern Europe. They've been talking tough in Eastern Europe since the 60s. What's new about that? If you're a leader of that big country in Eastern Europe, yeah, you don't lose wars. If you do, it doesn't turn out well for you personally. So, of course, there's going to be all this yip-yap on the tape. And we're selling the only future for humanity off that stuff. Now, I understand if a person might be afraid, of stonks, okay, maybe. I could understand if someone looked at gold and silver and goes, what's wrong with the market? Okay. In reality, there's nothing wrong with the market, crypto. There's nothing wrong. They're lowering the value of fiat currencies versus gold and silver. Crypto is inevitably next. This includes the big coins. I would throw Pepe in there, which is now at its discount zone. So big memes that can act as money. I would call antivirus and anything in privacy in this zone as well. Now that basically three guys own the platforms that, you spend most of your day on. Like when you're not watching the market update, you're watching this other stuff, right? Three guys. How is that not going to get challenged? It's going to get challenged. It's going to get challenged by me and you and crypto. Bitcoin has been largely forgotten about. Michael Saylor paid 117, 114, 110, and 109. Well, guess what? The market makers are getting it all back today. And we talked about this on that morning stream for a week and a half, that this was about altcoins getting smacked, altcoins getting shorted, so they could finally drag the market down, take advantage of the charts, take advantage of this fake Fed enthusiasm that I knew it was bunk, right? Everyone's like, oh, they're cutting rates. And all the macro experts on Twitter are like, yeah, Q4 rally right now. No, what they do doesn't matter. Doesn't. Now, that said, they are massively behind the curve. Housing is going to crater in the next 6 months, most likely. Or you're going to have, housing prices start falling. Then again, top-end luxury homes are fine. Why? Because no one wants to hold cash. They're sticking money somewhere. And of course, the trade that everyone is doing is always wrong. Always. Speaking of always wrong, selling crypto on geopolitical events, it could literally ruin your career in crypto. Like We're going to shoot down your jets. There's a big meeting at the Pentagon. Everybody in Washington, D.C. is ordering pizza, right? Eastern European countries say NATO is going to fight us, and they're already fighting us, right? Federal Reserve officials say, you can't fire us. You can't fire me. We run the world. Do you? Do you? Is that so? Actually, I think we do. And it's really kind of funny. The institution that gets it about parking money in houses, which I don't like, but, you know, they just bought $100 million worth of Bitcoin, and that's BlackRock. BlackRock's like, oh, great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for making this so cheap. It was like $170 billion liquidated wiped off the books in crypto. 170 billion liquidated. You realize that was bigger than the recent one-day change in NVIDIA. So we just marked the entire capitalism 2.0 universe down, right? And that's like a one-day change in one stock. Solana was worth 170 billion 2 days ago. 170 billion is a toothpick that, you know, like the Fed or these big Web 2 companies, I don't know, they flossed their teeth with that after eating some barbecue. It's like, yeah, we'll do 100 billion. Yeah, we'll do 100 billion with OpenAI. Yeah, we'll do 100 billion with NVIDIA. You got any idea what happens when this kind of money starts moving into like the real future? You know, people are investing in the easy future, which is, you know, Web 2 spending an indiscriminate amount of money to try to win a race that's going to take a long time to win. Like the short-term payoff off that, I don't know. I don't know if it's there in the short term. And the long term, of course it is. Whoever wins is going to win big. But in the meantime, you know, we want to disrupt the world with AI, but we want to dump the disruptor of money, Wall Street, right? Money. We're not disrupting anything except money and Wall Street worldwide, by the way, worldwide. You know, like how is the Japanese government central bank? How's the Japanese central bank, the Bank of Japan, managing inflation, interest rates? How they doing? You know, how's Powell doing? You know, you recently saw money supply uptick. Talked about this on the morning show. Yeah, money supply way up. Why? Because the printers are already on. The printers are on. And if equities go down, they're going to turn the printers on even harder. They're going to turn them on harder. Why? Well, again, people are miserable. There's no payroll growth. There's almost no future except through crypto. That's a little bold, but I don't think it's that bold. It's very McAfee, while I'm saying all the things that you can't say, you know, on Twitter. $500 million in leverage today. Gone. And then on top of this, you know, the administration is going to start using Elon's AI tools. So, I mean, are you comfortable with this? With like 3 or 4 guys running everything? I mean, the Austin city government met and was going to put AI cameras in parks today. You okay with that? I'm not. Crypto is being sold today by people who don't understand that the future of disruption is both AI and crypto, particularly in crypto, because it's about disrupting money, which is why ETH sub 4K is laughable. We'll go over the charts, right? We may have to go directly to the charts today. I definitely want to see who is here. I know this is not our usual time. You know, we've been a little off. We've been consistent in the morning, but the night stream's been tough, right? I'm a little under the weather, but we definitely appreciate your understanding. And like I said, it's not like I haven't been telling people. We got to get this bottom right. Everyone's talking about a Q4 rally. Now everyone's talking about the next global conflict. Ridiculous. All right, Tyler Hall from the Antivirus universe is here. Your Bass is here. Bull Runner, Shelly Farmer Allen, right? Some number 1 consumers of my content. King is here. Number 1 fan, DeMark for Chainlink and Solana. Dude, don't worry. We're going to get it. We're going to get to all of it. Don't worry. DJ and Joe is like, what is happening? Dude, it's the eclipse. It's the Gann trade. It's the PEAQ we waited for in September. They're just kind of doing it all at the end, thanks to momentum divergences. Guess who, Chicken Boo and Gion, regulars, welcome. Grandpa Keeter, David, a cozy crowd as we do an off-hour emergency market update. Okay. Now, I already showed the charts where we discussed the Gann roadmap. And here we are, Solana on a 4-hour chart. What do we got here? Well, you know, we did discuss what would happen if you had a failed rally. And that's exactly what you had, right? Over here on the 18th. And then look what we got down here around 190 in Solana. You got the 13 bottom. And, you know, 4 hours for like 8 hours from now, later on in the evening, you'll have the corresponding 9 bottom to go with it. Probably by tomorrow morning. What exactly is the problem? Well, the problem is, and I understand this, is that they wiped everybody out who FOMO'd into Solana, figuring that this was it, that the rate cut rally was on, the fourth quarter rally was on, and as is so typical in capital markets, is that when everyone knows it's coming, they wash everyone out first. Now, keyword is everyone. They wash everyone out, which is why I publish these roadmaps for people, right? Because I don't want you getting washed out after the Fed when, you know, YouTube ninnies are like, yeah, let's go. You know, it's the Fed. Yeah, no, it wasn't. Okay, Bitcoin, again, the same thing. Okay, it's like wipe everyone out that got launched. It's everyone, right? There was this wick down on the first of the month, right? This wick down, and everybody who bought after those wicks got hosed. And you've actually got, you know, first you had a 13 bottom here and you thought that was it. It wasn't. What a fake out, boy. This is painful. I'm not saying this was easy. This was ugly. This is like, I'm looking at this. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be okay. Let's just wait for the post-eclipse dip like on the roadmap. And then, boom, 13 bottom in Bitcoin. For goodness sakes. You know, why is everybody upset? You know, ETH. Okay, so what do we do in ETH? Well, let's see what we did in ETH. We got a little horizontal trend line. It's not the best trend line software, but oh, look, wait, look at what we did. Right, here was a resistance shelf from July. You had this massive breakout, and everyone got caught buying in the range. Everyone got lulled to sleep, and then they dropped it right back to the shelf. Now, of course, this is painful, right? Because everybody bought in here, got hosed. I'm not saying it's not painful. But what I am saying is, you know, 8 hours from now, that's going to be it. It's got to be in ETH. Why wouldn't it be? And frankly, even though I have not checked the DeMark work, right? This could be the trade. This is Avalanche right now. This does look like a very nasty double top, so we don't want it to spend too much time below 29.40. However, since everybody can see this double top, if it does go below 29.40 and then does a reclaim, cancel the double top, and you just had an A, B, C correction on the 4-hour chart. In other words, you know, Avalanche was doing stuff with PayPal. Avalanche doing something with security tokens. Everyone FOMO's in at 36, but at 29, they don't want it. Do you see how ridiculous this is? It's absolutely crazy. Now, if you're wondering, the classic why is crypto down question, okay, can be answered with, say, the Solana chart. We're also going to look at others in a minute. But I mean, this is Pretty simple. So here's what happened in Solana. You had a huge new high, right? But you had lower highs in the LuxAlgo momentum indicator, like a stochastic. I don't know if you had them in regular RSIs, but this type of bearish divergence was everywhere. And again, I wrote about this in Patreon. Wrote about this. I'm like, normally these things, you know, they don't resolve themselves on the first decline, right? So here's others, right? This is altcoins outside the top 100. You have a series of new highs in price, but you have a series of lower highs on the momentum indicator, also known as bearish divergence. Okay. So, you know, they have to smack it. You know, these things, they don't get resolved in a day. Normally, it goes down, people buy the first dip, it goes down again, people buy that dip, and then, you know, like I said, they get hosed. Everyone gets washed out. I don't know if this extends itself into tomorrow, but this is the market working off negative technical formations, and it's working off negative Gann seasonals. That's it. That's it. Now, when they get done purging everybody, what do you think is going to happen? Like when everyone realizes, oh, well, gee, you know, we're going to have the global conflict for the 12th time. And even if there is a conflict, there were conflicts, you know, in the Middle East, and the market was like, okay, yeah, that lasted for 12 days. You know, the Russians have been buzzing planes in Alaska and destroy. They've been doing that for years. They were doing that before this conflict started in 2022. Chainlink, right? It's like you're going to have 2 13 bottoms and 2 9 bottoms in Chainlink on top of this massive DeMark support point just underneath 20. I can't come up with the reason to be negative at this point, other than the fact that your bags are getting hammered. Now, Pepe admittedly has been in a tight range. I'm just like trying to make a point about leveraged ETH. None of this stuff ever went up. Everyone's like, oh, the market's down. No, dude, it's not down. It never went up. It never went up. Most of the market never went up, which of course is annoying. I get it. But, you know, this could be an enormous opportunity. So here is, you know, one of the top altcoins from our Gann model. Okay, Pyth. So we had, you know, just guess who Chicken Boo get long here, spiked up, comes back down right near the 62% retracement, right near some huge LuxAlgo support zone. Holy cow, right? In other words, you thought you missed it and you did, but you didn't, right? I mean, U.S. government did a deal with these guys. Everyone wants out now. No. People, this is when you get in. Because again, announcements have already been made, and this is all a part of the give up mentality in crypto. It's a part of the give up mentality. Hey, look at ETH. Okay, so ETH was overbought, right? ETH made all of these big new highs, okay, with, you know, momentum indicators going the other way. So that was negative along with the Gann seasonals, which is why I was comfortable with 4,100. And I'm showing this chart to Toby yesterday, and I'm like, look, you see these shelves, these like areas where ETH like really worked and then topped. Okay, well, ETH just came back down and retested them. And there's that big LuxAlgo support shelf underneath the market, and everyone's getting completely liquidated. And it's very typical in crypto. Like, you know, you might think that this is a bull flag if you bought a plain Jane chart book. Triangles always resolve themselves to the downside. It's very rare you see these flag formations actually work. You know, and what's the worst case scenario downside target from this triangle breakdown? Well, normally you measure like this distance from the point of the breakdown. this distance from the point of the breakdown. The worst case scenario in ETH is 3750. The neutral case for ETH, like the middle case where you measure the middle of the triangle, is 3880. Can you imagine what people, look, yeah, ETH got the 3880 today. What do you know? Everyone is selling. Everyone is out. Now, yesterday was a nasty fake out. You know, I did think the Gann bottom was yesterday and not today. So I'm not saying this wasn't brutal. This is brutal. However, it's brutal and it's also predictable. Like, for example, silver. Okay. So this is super bullish. You know, this is breaking out of an accumulation cone. That's constructive, but it is in the middle of the premium zone, and you do have pretty serious FOMO going on after, you know, a long-awaited silver move. So, yeah, people are enjoying themselves in precious metals. Energy is breaking out. Now, what does this have to do with crypto? Commodities are breaking out. Commodities rising are a way for the dollar to go lower without a crisis in the currency markets. So, hard commodities mooning, digital commodities getting sold. No way, no how, never. Neff, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Right? T-Bone is here. Right? T-Bone got stopped out. I understand. You know, this, I'm not saying this isn't awful. What I am saying is this is a huge opportunity. Okay, equities, 4-hour chart. Right? You see this insane up only? That's all retail. That's retail, I think. Just absolutely piling in. You know, maybe they wash him out a little bit. I don't know. You know, a little fear in the market can be a good thing. But again, the trajectory of equities, the trajectory of precious metals. I mean, if you just, you know, if you put like, let's try putting, oh no, let's try putting, let's just put Bitcoin. Let's put XRP. XRP versus S&P. Everyone hates it when I do this, but I don't care, right? I mean, XRP did okay. XRP got completely wiped out. I mean, you'd have to have a 300-point decline in the S&P for them to wipe out everything, and XRP just wiped out all the gains for the month. Meanwhile, stocks are fine. How does that make any sense at all? It makes no sense. Okay, the Bitcoin ETF. Okay, BlackRock and friends. Let's try the daily chart. Okay, so you launch into the premium zone. Support is far away. The 38% retracement is 59. So, you know, that theoretically, you could have another chunky drop in Bitcoin. Just being honest about the charts. But like I said, when you go back and you start looking at some of these altcoins are on support, right? Like, this is very interesting in Polkadot. Completely bizarre that you broke out of the top of the diamond and came back down, and now you're like out the bottom. Now, I would like to see that change quickly, to be honest. It's not what you want. But there's quite the battle going on at the apex of this diamond. And, you know, you got other top favorites like NEAR. Okay, look at this huge LuxAlgo support block. Why are we selling? Because it's down? Why are we bearish? Because it's down? No. When it's bearish, when it looks terrible, is when you get involved, right? Hedera down 5%. It is so funny. It is so funny that there was all this talk on the internet about a Hedera ETF, and they've done nothing but sell this thing all week. Nothing. 19 cents, just below 20 cents. I don't know. That's 62%. That's the juicy zone. Literally, they're bringing it right to you. I used to work with a guy who says, you know, make him sell it to you at a good price. Who knew? I mean, seriously, I had the roadmap. This is an important lesson in case you're feeling bad. I feel bad too. I had the roadmap. The low was supposed to be yesterday, and most likely the low is going to be overnight tonight. As soon as they get done doing whatever they're doing here, market makers will probably make one last big push to drop it before they turn around and literally just start buying it at the market. Like, here's more altcoins. Right? I guess we're getting an altcoin overtime very early. Pendle, like a top shelf DeFi play, right? I mean, we actually had a couple of winners, you know, even though this market sucks, right? Everyone was asking me about PEAQ. This is a top Gann pick. Huge volatility today. Huge. Down 18%. Okay. So let's look at the 4-hour chart of PEAQ. Okay. So there's your LuxAlgo Elliott wave signal for a top, tactical top. You get the 50% retracement. 62% is 0.088. It's a retracement. It's the dip you wanted. You wanted a dip. You missed it. They gave you a dip. Now, look, I know you're upset, but don't get bearish. Please don't get bearish, right? Even if they hit this thing overnight again. This to me feels like Christmas. Every YouTube, I wasn't doing it today. I was like, oh my God, it's a crash. It's going to continue. Folks, I'm looking at this as last chance shopping. You know, QNT was a coin we liked, down 9%, right? SEI is another coin. Let me bring this up. Okay, so I'm going through some of our top, like, plain vanilla sector picks. Just so you can look at the charts and ask yourself, like, buy or sell. Especially when you know the Gann model and Toby already like it. Whew. SEI down to the 4-hour discount zone. Now, that's quite the monkey hammer that they get out on this. It's at the discount zone. You know, you realize that if this thing goes parabolic in the fourth quarter, because people realize that capitalism 1.0, you know, is overvalued relative to crypto, you're going to be like, I was selling during this time period. Why? Syrup, formerly Maple, was outperforming most of the quarter. Then it stopped outperforming. I don't know what they did to it today. Again, Syrup at its 4-hour discount zone. And of course, as you can note, and we were talking about this for 2 days, this is people giving up, right? When you have market action like this, that's just straight down, people are packing it in. And I know this happened to a couple people in Patreon. I know it did, where some of their altcoin positions just, you know, they got vaporized because people gave up. Why is everyone on Twitter talking about a fourth quarter rally and M2, and then the next thing you know, everyone is giving up? Well, everyone is giving up because they wanted the fourth quarter rally right this second, and they didn't get it. They didn't get it, and they lost their mind. Now, 2 coins that are going to be on our list. So, top altcoins for October. I got all the reports queued up. I was just waiting for the ninnies to get done with the heave. I didn't want to publish stuff early because I didn't want to get people caught. Right? Chain flip, cross chain. You realize if you have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and Avalanche, you get all those chains going all at once. Cross-chain will undoubtedly be a theme. How can it not be? Right? And then there's POKT. Huge up move, retracement. All this stuff that, public data anywhere. Data management. The graph. Filecoin. I know, no one wants to talk about it. Oracles. Band protocol. Eagle King is in the house. Welcome. When you start when you start looking, you start looking at charts of things from the bottom up. Like, in other words, don't just look at the big coins. Look at, what the small coins are doing. A lot of small coins are giving you 62% retracements. Right? And then I'm going to pull up like GLD. So let's just look at gold. This is gold through the ETF market. So interesting that GLD on the 4-hour chart, massive overshoot. The top was supposed to be like early September, and they're just overshooting it massively. If you look at this, I'm not hating on this, but you're two candles away from a 13 top. And, you had Goldman and a lot of other people saying the easy money had been made. And then they got themselves an overshoot. You're going to have a 13 top in SLV. That's silver in the ETF market. Meanwhile, just looking at the Bitcoin ETF, right? There's a gap here on DeMark support around 60. I mean, I can't believe what they've done with the gold ETF and left Bitcoin completely in the dust. And I know you go on Twitter and, Peter Schiff is giving you a hard time. The gold guys are giving you a hard time. And, turnabout's fair play. The change in the way people perceive fiat has only begun, and the first trade is usually always wrong. I'm not saying gold is wrong, but the first trade was housing. That's definitely wrong, right? Remember, everybody selling Bitcoin to buy a house? Waiting to see how that works out, given demand in like the center. Demand in the center of the housing market is just completely falling out of bed. Falling out of bed because they kept rates way too high for way too long. And when they have to catch up on that, Novogratz was saying 2 days ago, and I said it on a stream, that's a mega cycle. We're headed for a mega cycle, and literally everybody is selling, which is how you get a mega cycle, right? Everyone gets out, everyone gets stopped out, bearish. Oh, dude, I get it. This market has carved people up in such a way that it's absolutely a nightmare. But all bottoms are nightmares, right? And then, other headlines that are being completely ignored. Okay, the Dutch Parliament, Europe is considering Bitcoin strategic reserve. The English, this guy was some like fringe politician, and now he's like the leading candidate over there talking about Bitcoin. Now, of course, we know politicians can talk about Bitcoin, but, if you look at the euro as a currency, central banks are not increasing their holdings of the euro. They're buying gold and silver. So if you think there are problems with the dollar, you have a group of borderline ungovernable countries who are also talking about, wanting to mix it up with a professional war machine. Yeah, I don't think so. And even if they did that, oh my God, their currencies would all collapse. You'd have a stampede into gold or other related items. You wouldn't be able to see straight. You wouldn't be able to see straight. Now, let's talk a little bit about historical parallels. Everyone keeps bringing up that, the AI thing looks like the 2000 tech bubble. That's what everyone keeps saying. I was there for the 2000 tech bubble. This is nowhere near as wild. Yeah, it's wild in terms of you have valuation issues. Yeah, okay. With an AI disruption, you're going to have to give them some slack on valuations. You have some phony baloney accounting going on, but in equities, these things don't matter until they do. Everyone is talking about that, and no one is talking about how crypto is having a 1998 moment. In 1998, there was a huge down move in equities off the failure of a hedge fund and a currency problem over in Asia. The Fed had to cut rates 3 times to stop it, right? And then banks had to come in and liquidate this gigantic hedge fund, right? Everyone lost their mind. It looked like the absolute end of the world. And then the internet, .com, PC, Microsoft operating system trade just took off and didn't stop for years. Here's an idea in crypto for you to consider on a day like today. What happens if they trade the whole cycle between September 28th and either Christmas or the middle of January? The entire altcoin cycle. The cycle you were supposed to have, not this up, down thing. I'm talking about the trend. What happens if the trend starts today or 8 hours from now? Now, if I said that to you after the Fed, you would have been like, oh my God, I got a FOMO in at 25x leverage. And I understand that. That's not wrong. It was off on the timing because, again, when everyone knows it's coming, they get everyone out first, right? Now everyone's like, well, I don't know if it's coming. Okay, yeah, it is. It most certainly is, which is why, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at, we got 20 coin, we got lists of 20 coins, we got the top 3 coins. I gave you some hints today. Most of the plays that we're looking at are anywhere between 3 and 800 market cap. I mean, even some of these things like Pocket Network, 56 million. Like these crypto projects, when you say 56 million, like, okay, if it's a meme coin that gets to 56 million, you might be like, oh, okay, well, that's a robust move, right? But Pudgy Penguins was at 1.8 billion. And most of the tech part of crypto isn't even 100 million. It isn't even at 100 million, right? I mean, chain flip, the cross-chain play that we're talking about, 862 market cap. Again, it's not investment advice. This is a preview because we're going to be pouring into the YouTube area. I mean, Toby was like, we're doing massive amounts of small caps over the weekend. When this is all said and done, we're going small cap shopping. Now she wants to add to your big HODL portfolio, which again, we also have that in Patreon, right? We have, everything you need is there in the collections, everything. And we're going to add to it because we want to get after all of these, what I would call mid caps. We want to get after these mid caps because it's too cheap relative to equities, like way too cheap. All right, let's see who we got that's here. We have Jav is back as a member. Welcome, sir. David Azevedo. Be the dip. Become one with the dip. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Right? Again, and the revulsion in this market, I would imagine. Suncatcher Hawaii is here. Welcome. The revulsion in this market is epic. Like people just literally don't want to touch it. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the definition. That is the definition of a bottom. When no one wants to touch it, when no one wants to watch a live stream. And I'm sort of repeating myself. We're going to go to more live TA here. This is total crypto market cap without Bitcoin on a 4-hour chart, headed straight into its discount zone at 1.5 trillion. So they've knocked 200 billion off total crypto market cap outside of Bitcoin. I'd say that's enough. Call me crazy. That's enough. Oh, I forgot about total altcoin market cap. So total altcoin market cap has wiped out this entire vertical up move, right? Straight up, straight down. Brutal, awful, seriously, terrible. But there's this huge shelf that, you know, there's all of this congestion around a trillion, right? Total 3 could not get past a trillion for, you know, the entire summer. Now it's just kind of like climb back into its comfort zone. Again, after working off this very intense bearish divergence. A lot of times, you know, it'll get oversold. It'll sit there for a while. You know, sometimes you have one more down day. Ask yourself this question. You know, like Toby will look at the Polkadot chart. We'll do it on the stream. And someone says, where's Polkadot going? So Toby has her own like intuitive way of doing TA. It's definitely the opposite of the way I do it. Pretty much the opposite way everyone does it. So, you know, she kind of looks at the chart and kind of gets her signal from the beyond and, you know, does her thing. She says Polkadot's going back to 10. Polkadot's going to go back up here. Because everyone thinks that, you know, oh, you know, we're not going to have, you know, we're not going to have Wall Street running on the blockchain. We're not going to have water running on the blockchain. And this whole thing about privacy. 3 people control all of the media. Like no one watches legacy media anymore. So the media that you watch is controlled by 3 people. You know, they're all telling you, oh, yeah. Free speech is back. Okay. You know, it's amazing. It is. It's literally amazing that given some of my opinions about the world, that I'm still here. I'm okay. We have 0 dings because I know what to talk about and what not to talk about. But like, you know, look at them pack it in on John McAfee. Look at them pack it in here on Aintivirus. Crazy. You know, these guys have, you know, gift cards. No one can see you. SIM cards. No one can see you. They have, you know, they have hoodies and T-shirts that defeat facial recognition. Did you know in Austin, there was a family, their license plate registered on one of these cameras? Law enforcement thought that the vehicle was stolen based on what the AI told them. You know, vehicle theft is something that allows for law enforcement to pull out their implements of defense immediately. Pulled out of their car on the pavement, cuffed, computer was wrong. $1.4 million legal judgment against the city of Austin. Don't think you need these things? 3 guys control it all. Everyone's like, oh, we want a decentralized world. Okay. Well, what kind of world do you have? Do you have a decentralized world? No, you don't. You absolutely don't. And the decentralized world is absurdly cheap. It's absurdly cheap. And I mean, it was absurdly cheap a week ago versus equities. Now, I mean, they marked some of this stuff down like 15 to 20%. Like Sui, And again, these are intraday. These are 4-hour charts. SUI went from 4, close to 4. Today, the low was 307. What? That's a 30% drop in a top layer 1, which is undoubtedly going to be running DeFi and stablecoins. You know, I don't think I've got the tweet, but there was a tweet that went around where, you know, Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was being challenged by a media person about whatever. And Bessent stood his ground. I mean, Bessent's like this big 6'5" dude. Okay. You know, don't be fooled by other things. And whatever Bessent was saying, Stan Druckenmiller, like the most famous hedge fund guy ever, who never had a down year, and he's my age in equities, never had a down year, long and short, both. He does either. Goes in and types in response to the tweet about Bessent, he goes, low-key savage. Meaning, when that guy tells you that they're doing stable coins in such an epic way, and it makes you really wonder how, you know, again, even though it's a normal correction based on Gann seasonality and charts, what everyone is doing with ETH at 3880 today. Because you're just having another leveraged wipeout that works directly in favor of the market makers who are going to be responsible for filling orders for BlackRock, Michael Saylor, and don't forget all these other Bitcoin and Solana treasury companies, right? You're going to have to get used to this. All these characters buy, and then the market gets dropped. And that'll continue until it becomes obvious that a new trend is going to begin, what I would call the real trend. Toby's been talking about the Q4 rally since the beginning of the year, all year. I'm like, oh my God, please shut up telling people it's going to be all the way to Q4 until we make it. And now here we are. We're at Q4 and everyone is selling at the point where the Gann model that is in the hands of our Patreon guys says there should be a bottom. I was 8 hours off. Please come hang out with us. Okay. We have Huckleberry Native, TC Crypto in the house. Gion, when 95K? God, I hope not, man. And if it is, it's going to be a wick, a fast one. I'm not looking for 95. Okay, Huckleberry Native, rough times we don't deserve, honestly. True. But you got to ask yourself, how are you going to push back? How's anybody going to push back? Right? The great Santini. Haven is here. Caroline, storyteller in the house. Right? Daydream and Believe. Anthony Alvarez. GDL. SNX back. That's right. You know, Julius Max. Hello. Let me see what happened in SNX. I saw SNX up like 20% one day. I don't know if it turned around and it was a problem. Good God. Like here's the thing about all of this old school DeFi stuff is that these are like suppression bands. You know, these downward sloping wedges. Toby talks about this all the time. I showed her ETH versus Bitcoin, and she's like, oh my God, ETH is still so suppressed. So Synthetics breaks out, comes back down to retest the top of the downward sloping wedge. It's like holding a basketball underwater. You let go of the basketball, and it goes straight up. And you're going to look at these days where, you know, I don't mind telling you this. If you get the kind of Q4 rally that like Tom Lee's talking about, Michael Saylor's getting long on, Novogratz is talking about, BlackRock was a buyer today. You know, you do realize that if you get a Q4 banana zone rally, you're going to look back at a 30% drop over a period of days on nothing and be like, I can't believe I didn't take advantage of that. Can I have another 30% drop? Okay. And when you need the 30% drop, it'll be a 60% drop. Or you just never get it. It just kind of takes off. So if you look at the Gann work, which again, everybody in our premium groups, everybody had it. YouTube, Platinum had it first, YouTube, and then, you know, the VIP guys, the Spartans and Patreon, I made sure they had it. And they had a podcast and I said, hey, let's get this right. Let's get this right. And it's the same message, right? Okay. You may have gotten stopped out today, right? The crypto dream. There's me and Toby Ward. There's the roadmap. This is as of the 22nd. Here is others showing, you know, hey, you know, you can have one more down trade. Okay. It's probably a great entry zone. We are going to get this right because it's important. It's important for you. Like if you watch our podcast, nobody gives a better crypto pep talk than Toby Ward. Nobody. And she'll tell you about direction and the fourth quarter rally. And like I said, we have got every single altcoin you can imagine. We already gave you 2. We got every single altcoin. We're going to review September. We're going to review October. And I suspect anything between 3 and 800 market cap, I can give you this. She said, basically, this is going to get to a point where you can take a dart and throw it at a list of altcoins and do okay. Now, we like to think our research is better than that because we call it Pyth, PEAQ, Polkadot, whatever. Those were trading rallies. Trading rallies frequently turn into trends after you flush people out. And I know if you got flushed out, I know what happened to some of our guys. I get it, right? Everyone wants to get leverage. You know how I would do leverage in this thing? I would buy it and wait for it to start going up. And then on any dip thereafter, that's when you add leverage, right? Right now, you're in make them sell it to you at a good price mode, which is exactly what they're doing, right? Because if I was a market maker, my final word, if I was a market maker in this market, I would lean on this thing until everyone was out. Like if I've been shorting it for 3 days, I would just keep shorting it overnight. I would scare everybody all the way to the New York Open. And then it would cover. Michael Carroll asks, is the arrow run over? No. No, the arrow run is not over because I think Coinbase is going to take everything on base, right, and eventually start listing it. So base volume is going to be monstrous. And I think that it's going to be the same thing in Solana. And, you know, I do have to note, some guy said it in our chat. You know, I know we have a lot of guys here who like Pengu, and Toby Ward kind of went off on this and was like, no, Pengu is now at, you know, an equilibrium area. You want to hope that something like this holds a bid because remember, the valuation of this is close to 1.5 billion. Okay. Caroline Storyteller, a member for 11 months. Thank you. Many people, T-Bone is already a Spartan officer. Your emoji changes after 1 year. So thank you to all of our customers. Okay. PEAQ down 20%. A crash is a liquidity event. Yes, your bags look terrible. My bags look terrible. I scaled in some yesterday and then woke up to this. So they got everybody, including the people who thought the low was like right here. They got everybody, but that's the key. It's a liquidity event because when they get everybody, it's a low. That's the market update for today. We will see you tomorrow morning.